So welcome us for here too. Will you play along with me here? I have a question. How many of you are feeling extraordinary today? Say yes. Oh, that's really good. Congratulations. And how many of you are feeling ordinary? Say yes. And what's happening with the others? Neither? Undecided? Well, I'll tell you what happened to me on Monday night. I had a bit of a crisis. My crisis went a bit like this. Oh my God. Oh my God. What did I get myself into? You know? Okay, I know Marina, I love her, I like her, I agreed to come here, but what am I going to talk about? I don't have an extraordinary story to share. I don't know anything about inspiration. I am a coach, I'm a consultant. My business is actually taking the people who are inspired and helping them create the extraordinary thing that they want. And as I was digging in the fear, because, I like to dig, I realized that what was at the bottom of it was the fact that I am actually very ordinary. So I was thinking that's really ironic, right? I am excited about being here because what I want to share with you is my belief that it is in our ordinariness that lies what is extraordinary about us, and yet I was very fearful about coming and doing it from the position of an ordinary person. And being there, I had to actually reconcile these two things. A belief in one hand, and an attitude in the other. And we find ourselves in this situation very frequently. And one of the two needs to be adjusted. Either we change what we believe in, the script, the pattern, the shadow, facing the shadow, or we change our attitude. We make a choice. We choose something different. And so the choice that I made is to come and stand here in front of you, standing in my ordinariness, in the hope that I can nudge you a little bit along the way of taking the step to follow your dream. And the reason is that I feel that even though I'm ordinary, I am extraordinarily blessed. I have an extraordinary life, and I'm grateful for it. And this is how I want to start, because what I'm going to share with you is going to help you become happier. You probably know it, you may know it. In fact, it is a guaranteed way to make you happier by 25%, at least, for at least 6 months. It requires a small investment, an investment of a few minutes for about 3 weeks, every day for 3 weeks, okay? And it's true, right? I'm not making this up. There is research backing this up. And it's research by positive psychologists. Are you aware of the field of positive psychology? Yes. We are aware of it now. When I was in university, this did not exist. The most exciting thing that I did in university, because I'm a psychologist, well, organizational psychologist though, so, don't know much about the shadow, the most exciting thing was Goldie. I had a guinea pig that I was studying her grooming rituals or something. Anyway, so in 1998, Martin Seligman, he urged his colleagues, the American Psychological Association, to study happy people, normal people, and what makes them happy. And so there was funding for this. There is actually funding for this type of research, and there are serious researchers out there, serious scientists, who study what makes us happy. And what they have found is very interesting. What they have found is that if we express gratitude, that makes us happy. This is a very interesting observation or finding, if you like, because usually we think it is the other way around. We think, if I get this, or rather, when I get this, right? When I get the house, when I get the car, when I get the job, when I get fill in the blank, whatever it is that you want, then I will be happy, right? And when I'm happy, I'm going to be grateful that I'm happy. And actually, it's the other way around. The way it is that if I am grateful for what is real in my life right now, then that makes me happy. So here's the experiment that you can try to increase your happiness levels by 25% for at least 6 months. It is to notice what you're grateful about, okay? Notice what you're grateful about in your life. And you need only 2 or 3 minutes per day to do this, and write them down. Spend 2 or 3 minutes every day thinking what you're grateful about in that day. Write them down, and you need to write down at least 5 things. The only catch is that you do not repeat yourself. So the second day, you cannot write the same thing. You cannot write. So if the first day you say, I'm happy, I'm grateful for the fact that I have a roof over my head, and I have a job, and I have a healthy family, then you cannot repeat that the second day. You have to find something else, okay? So this is the experiment. And what do you think? Does it sound interesting? Yeah? I mean, how many of you think it's interesting? Okay, almost all of us think it's interesting. And now this is the question. How many of you are actually going to do it tonight? Yeah, exactly. Exactly, I know exactly what this is. Because I've known about this experiment forever, right? And I actually prescribed it as homework for my executive coaching clients. They all came back reporting great results. Did I do the exercise? No. Of course not. I knew it sounded interesting, but there seems to be a gap between knowing something, wanting something, and actually doing it. But as a coach, I'm in the business of action. So, there is a little gap here. And so I tried to figure out what is going on. And I got a bit of help from neuroscience this time. Forget the positive psychologist for a moment. And neuroscience, like a guy called Marco Iacobini, they have studied what are called mirror neurons. Are you familiar with this term? So they're looking at these neurons who are helping us make sense of the world and the feelings of others. And what they have found is this theory of the ideomotor model of human activity, I think, so, of human action. And what this stipulates, what this suggests, is that all our actions follow from an intention. So once we have a clear intention, this is when the action can happen. And in fact, our actions only exist in order to make this intention come true. Okay, so let's take this nice idea and see what it actually means. To me, it means that unless we have a clear intention, our actions are all over the place. It means that, though, when we have a clear intention, our actions are geared towards taking us into this intention. So when we hear our colleagues, the previous speakers here, talking about their dreams, what they had was a very clear dream, a very clear intention. And with this clear intention, their actions followed to make this a reality. Okay? So we need a clear dream, and this is important in order to have the action that will lead us to the dream. But what happens? Still there is a block in the way. And this block in the way is that we're afraid to take the risk, as Maria was saying earlier. What is the risk? And I struggle a little bit with this because I've worked with people who were expressing their dream, who were willing to take the step, but still there was something stopping them. And I was looking at what is this risky behavior, this aversion to risk or this taking the risk. And I realized that there were two sides to it. From one side, we seem to be taking a lot of unnecessary risks. I have to own up to the fact that, for instance, this is personal. Up until June, when I discovered that I was pregnant, I was a very heavy smoker, right? I was smoking like a chimney. I'm talking about so many cigarettes I never even counted. And of course, I knew of the health risks associated with smoking, right? I mean, they're written on the box. They say it kills, it causes cancer. Did I think it was risky? No, I didn't think it was risky. It's bizarre. Or think about the corporate world. This happens there all the time. Marina was talking about the risk, measuring the risk in corporations. And we see hedge fund managers and, market speculators taking incredible risks. Or we see executives in oil companies taking the risk of not building the second platform that is needed. Why? Why is that? It's a huge risk. So we cannot say that humans do not take risks. I think what happens in these situations is that actually we underestimate the danger, the cost of our action. And what we are looking at, we associate the risk with the action itself. And Maria talked about it, and I will explain a bit more about it in a minute. And also you have this side of us that takes a lot of risks, and then you have this other side of us that is really risk averse. So when we are faced with pursuing a dream, we say, oh no, that's too risky. Or when we are faced with making a decision like, do I stay in this relationship that is not working or in this job that is unfulfilling, we sometimes shy away because we think, oh, this is too risky, right? And so why is that? And I really struggled with this until last night. fellow Toastmaster, Judy Miles, she sent me a story that I think explains exactly what happens. And it's the story of ants. You know, ants, the little... yeah. And it's fascinating, really. I mean, this was in a book by a biologist called Eugene Marais, who was a South African biologist. He wrote the book in 1925, and he was fascinated by the life of ants. So one of the things that fascinated him, and it's a beautiful title, I have to tell you, it's called The Soul of the White Ants. Great. Anyway, so he was studying ants, and he was fascinated by the fact that they did not like risk very much. And so he set up a series of experiments. One of the experiments that he said was this. I don't know what they're called, right? But I think it's a nest. So there was the ant nest, let's say. And he created a little pool of water on their way to where they were going to fetch food. And he placed some grass stalks, like bridges, to see how they were going to behave. Were they going to take the risk to cross the bridge, to go and fetch food? You know, what was going to happen? And what he observed was fascinating. With the ants that were going to fetch food, once they reached the water, and of course there was a pool of water and there was a way to go around, but the ants were not as clever to find another way, they would get in front of the pool of water, they would test with their four, what do you call them, arms? Let's say arms, or legs probably, yes. With their legs, the stalk, it would move, they would test it with their antenna, it would look unsafe, insecure, they would turn back, go to the other ants and say, forget it, guys, we're not gonna cross here. But then the ants that were coming back, the ones that were carrying the seed, back to the nest, completely different behavior. They were heavily loaded. A seed is heavy for an ant. It makes its progress much harder than an ant without a load. They reached the water immediately, without an ounce of hesitation. They would just jump on the grass stalk, on the straw, and just go across. Some of them would capsize, but they would just hold on to the straw, and to their seed, and make it across. And he thought, what is going on? For the ants that are leaving their nest, it's so much easier to cross, and yet they do not take the risk. The ants that go back, it's so much harder. It's heavy, it's difficult, and they do not hesitate. What is going on? And so what he concluded was this, that for the ants that were leaving their nest, there was not a lot of motivation. And so they were judging their risk by the risk of the action. Maria spoke about this. So what they were seeing was the risk of crossing. The ants that were coming back were actually considering the risk of their outcome. And for them, there was motivation to reach across. They were reaching home, right? They were taking food back home safely. So then the risk of the action was minimized for them. Does it make sense, what I'm saying? And I think that's what happens to us. And I think that's a way, actually, to overcome our risk aversion so that we can do the things that will lead to the extraordinary lives that we want to live. And the thing is this, to be aware of the consequences of our actions, not to only think of the action itself. So when I was a smoker, and I hope I will not become a smoker again once after, I give birth, but we'll see. I'll try. So when I was a smoker, I was hesitant. I considered very costly the fact, the pain or the distraction of quitting smoking, right? Once I got pregnant, the real risk was actually hurting my baby, right? The outcome of my action. So I think that if we are aware of the consequences of our actions and we choose the consequence that is in line with our intention, which is our dream, then we have a much better chance of making it across the water. There is a nice, is this my time, my real time? Oh. I'm usually brief, I don't know what happened. Okay, so there is a line by Stephen Covey. Have you heard of this guy? He's written the Habits. Habits are important, by the way, but we don't have time. And he has a line that says, we are free to choose our actions, but we're not free to choose the consequences of our actions. And I think this is really important to keep in mind, because we forget that. I think, I pressed the snooze button this morning, and I chose the action of, staying in bed a bit longer. And of course, I didn't want to be late, but of course I was late, because I didn't have a choice once I pressed the snooze button, right? So for me, it's a matter of being aware. First of all, having the dream as clear as possible. And this is a work that we all owe it to ourselves to do. And then taking the steps, taking the action, but the action that is going to bring us to the consequences that we want. So, given that I have only 1.5 minutes left, I'd like to just invite you, as we are here today, and we have a tree of dreams outside. I'd like to invite you, regardless of where you are in your journey, because some of you may already be in your journey or fulfilling your dreams, and some of you may be just at the start, and some of you may be exploring. I'd like to invite you to actually take the risk of writing it on a piece of paper. Take the risk of discussing it with a colleague here, with a fellow participant in TEDx. Because that way it's going to be real, and it's going to be articulated, and it's going to be much harder to ignore it and forget about it, like the exercise, with the happiness that you're not going to do, even though you know it's going to make you 25% more happy for 6 months. And if you have a big dream, and it's a very big dream, and you're thinking, oh, but can I really do it? Do I have what it takes? Am I enough? Then I will leave you with this quote that I think is wonderful, because we spoke about ants, and I would like to speak about another insect. And it's a quote by Anita Roddick, and she was the owner of the Body Shop. And she said that if you think that you're too small and perhaps you've heard it, and too insignificant to make a difference and to have an impact, then try going to bed with a mosquito. Thank you very much.